With Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance showing up on Nintendo Online, there's a whole lot of questions on what games are going to come to the platforms. And honestly, there's a lot of games I hope come, but there's a bunch of games that I feel like might not come, even though we have a lot of nostalgia for. So I'm here going to try to make a top 10 list of games that I would like to see coming to the platform. Now, there is a catch to this. I am excluding games that we kind of already know of or we're kind of guessing are going to be there, such as, Golden Sun we know is coming to the platform. So I think it's safe to assume that Golden Sun 2, The Lost Age, is going to come later on, right? So I'm really going to focus today on the Game Boy Advance games as well. I'll make a separate list for Game Boy and Game Boy Color because for me that's actually a little bit harder list. I got to put a lot more thought into because I just feel like it's just different generation. I have to go back to my mind palace and kind of remember all the great games that were available for the Game Boy. But we're going to talk about the Game Boy Advance games and the top 10 list for Game Boy Advance games there. Another catch to this list is we are not going to mention anything that's in the collection, such as Mega Man Battle Network. I know Mega Man Battle Network was huge for Game Boy Advance, one of my favorite games out there, but we do know that the Mega Man Battle Network collection is coming out, so I won't be mentioning that. Also the Castlevania collection, Advanced collection rather, so I won't be mentioning any of the Castlevania games. So anything that was in the collection pretty much I won't be mentioning. So here's my top 10 Game Boy Advance games I would like to see coming to the platform. At number 10, this is one that I don't really see coming to the platform, but I would love for it to come to the platform, and that is the Legacy of Goku series. Those span about, I believe, 4 different games in the series. You have Legacy of Goku, Legacy of Goku 2, and there's also Legacy of Goku Bu's Fury, and then there is one more that I believe is dedicated to like the Dragon Ball GT storyline. I mean, those games were great. I guess you can call them action RPG. They do remind me a lot of like the Secret of Mana series, so they're pretty much similar to that, but they were fun nonetheless. I really enjoyed, Legacy of Goku 1, and I remember how difficult it was towards the end. We had to fight Frieza, but they improved it in every way, shape, or form in Legacy of Goku 2 and as well as Legacy of Goku 3. These are games that I feel should definitely come to the platform. The likelihood of it happening is probably very low, but hey, I guess we'll get to wait and see what happens. Let's hope so, because Dragon Ball is still pretty popular. Number 9, it's another game that the likelihood of that coming to the platform is, I think it has a higher chance than Legacy of Goku. I would love for it to come to the platform, and that is Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town. So that was actually one of my favorite PS1 games, and then when it got re-released on Game Boy Advance, man, was I excited, and I did buy it again on Game Boy Advance and played it for so long. I know Harvest Moon right now is already available on PlayStation 1, or through the emulator rather of PlayStation 1 on the PS5 and PS4 consoles. So that's why I'm saying, like, I could see it coming to the platform. I think Stardew Valley, if you've played Stardew Valley like games, right, or Stardew Valley itself, that's kind of where they got the inspiration, was from Harvest Moon. Specifically this one, this has been the most, I'll say the most popular one. They've remade it so many different times, they've added different elements. There's even a girl version to Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town. So in Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town you can only choose the male character, but there's also a female version that you can do, which is pretty cool. So I mean, both of those would actually be amazing if they would come to the platform, so at least people can choose what type of character they want, since the game itself didn't have that choice. But nonetheless, an amazing farming game, amazing chill game. I highly recommend it if you haven't played it already, and I do hope this comes to the platform. Number 8, it's going to be Sonic Battle. So I'm not sure if a lot of you remember that game, but that was like a kind of weird like fighting game, but it was actually pretty fun. It came out around the same time that the Sonic TV show, I believe, was coming out. I can't remember the name of it. Sonic X? Yeah, Sonic X. Around the same time that was actually coming out, so like there's a little bit of overlap there, but I mean, it was a pretty decent battle game. It was something different, and nonetheless it was fun. I had a lot of fun playing it. It reminded me of a lot of other different battle games that were around at that time, but a little bit more unique, such as like the Digimon battle games. Those were amazing. Those would be awesome on the platform too, but I won't go into detail with that. But Sonic Battle, I did have a lot of fun, and I feel like Sonic is kind of in that renaissance now that the movies have come out. They've done really good. Sonic Frontiers was really good. So a lot of people are probably thinking about playing a lot of these classic games, and what better way to bring a classic game like Sonic Frontiers out. I mean, I guess, or Sonic Frontiers, I'm sorry. Sonic Battle. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Speaking of Sonic, number 7 on the list is the Sonic Advanced series. So I couldn't choose one out of all the Sonic Advanced games, but if I had to choose, which is very difficult, I will probably say Sonic Advance 3, because I think that kind of improved everything that came before it, and it's probably one of the better ones in my opinion, but all 3 of them were great. They were very fun classic Sonic games. I mean, I had a blast playing them, and until this day I still play them, and they're really fun in terms of a 2D Sonic game. I felt like it definitely kept continuing the series and kept taking the series forward in terms of the 2D space. It was a shame because, you know, after that we did get the DS games, which were pretty good, and then we got Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which was not great at all. So it's kind of a shame that they didn't continue the formula that Sonic Advance had. But it would be nice to see all 3 of those games available on the Nintendo Switch Online Game Boy Advance platform. I mean, Nintendo already has a deal with Sega because the Genesis games are on there, so why not bring Sonic to Game Boy Advance, right? Now, I know I mentioned that I wasn't going to mention any games that came to a collection, but Mega Man and Bass is one of those games that didn't come to any collection, and actually I was kind of disappointed because Mega Man and Bass is probably my favorite game in the Mega Man series. Honestly, it was really fun. I love being able to play as Mega Man and Bass, and they were definitely 2 different characters. I mean, yeah, it's been done before with Zero and X, but I feel like with Mega Man and Bass they were just more unique. You see, I think Bass is an amazing character. He was introduced in Mega Man 7, and you know, he's there in 8, but to be able to play as him, I thought that was awesome. And the Game Boy Advance version of Mega Man and Bass was amazing. I mean, I played it a lot, got through it, got really towards the end, but never finished it. So I would like to see that come to the Game Boy Advance Nintendo Switch Online platform. Now, I do admit that the SNES version is a lot better. That's actually the version that I played the most. I mean, the music in the SNES version is just amazing. Like, just can't name it. Game Boy Advance unfortunately tones it down because it just didn't have as much power for sound and all that stuff. But nonetheless, the same core experience of the Mega Man Bass game is still there. The music is still great. I would love to see that come to Nintendo Switch Online, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let's hope it does, because as of right now, there's really no way to play it in modern times. Like, honestly, I think the last time it came out was in Virtual Console on Wii U, so I guess there's hope, right? Now, Tactics Ogre Advance rather, is a game that I've been wanting to play for the longest. I honestly never played it, and you know I love tactics games. I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan. I've loved Final Fantasy Tactics. Pretty much any tactics game that's come out, I pretty much enjoyed them all. And I really would like to play Tactics Ogre Advance. I have played the Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling. Is it Let Us Cling Together? I forgot the name of it, but the PSP version, I have played that. I haven't picked up the newer remake that's came out, remastered rather. So I would love for this game to come to the platform. I mean, Square Enix, don't believe they've put any game, now that I think about it, on any of the Switch Online platforms. I guess, no, yeah, Mario RPG is not on there neither. So I guess it'll really be up to Square Enix for them to show that on the platform. The likelihood of it happening is probably very low, seeing Square Enix's track record in releasing that game, but I guess we'll wait and see. Speaking of Square Enix, another game that I would like to see come to the platform, which the likelihood of that happening is probably almost zero, I would say, is Final Fantasy 6 Advanced. You see, I know that the Pixel Remasters are coming out to consoles. I do own Final Fantasy 6 Pixel Remaster on PC, but the difference between the Advanced version and the Pixel Remaster is that the Pixel Remaster was just a remake of the original 6. So it cut out all the extra content that the Advanced games had. So it would be nice to have Final Fantasy 6 Advanced available on Game Boy Advance, because I mean, you'll be able to play all those extra features that are not going to be available. I mean, honestly, when you look at it, all those features are locked to the past, and there's no way for us to play that. So that kind of sucks, and when you think about it, video game preservation, man. Oh well. Final Fantasy VI Advance is definitely a game I would love for it to come to the platform. Speaking of Final Fantasy, we can't have this game missing, and that is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. Like I mentioned earlier, I do love tactics games, and Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is no exception. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is a very fun tactical RPG. Honestly, it's really great. It's a game that I feel like should definitely come to the platform, because We haven't gotten a remake or anything like that, and it's just fun and unique. It's a little bit more lighthearted when you compare it to like Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics or even to Fire Emblem. It's a lot more lighthearted compared to those, but the core gameplay and the gameplay loop is very fun. The story is even pretty decent as well. I did enjoy the story. I think I liked Final Fantasy Tactics A2 story a little bit better, but nonetheless, I did love the story, and I just love the Evilist world. I think it's one of the best Final Fantasy worlds out there, and I would love for them to explore more avenues, you know, within the Evilist. But, you know, nonetheless, Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced is definitely, I think, a candidate that should come there. I guess we have to wait to see if Square Enix is going to go ahead and do that. I mean, who knows? Let's hope so. Now, before I mention my top 2, I did want to give an honorable mention to A Link to the Past. And the reason behind that is it's hard to say or predict if A Link to the Past doesn't come to Game Boy Advance because we already have the SNES version. But what the SNES version didn't have and the Game Boy Advance version did is the Four Swords Adventure. Now that's one thing that I would love to play. I mean, honestly, you already have Switch Online Play available for Game Boy Advance on Nintendo Switch Online, or rather the Game Boy Advance section. So why not bring this game? Because this game was the perfect co-op game. It was a standalone game to ambassadors who bought the 3DS, and that's pretty much it. Like, other than that, you weren't able to play it online. It was all local play anyways. So this would be a great way to actually introduce the game, and I'm sure a lot of people will play this together. I mean, honestly, I'll play this stream with everybody at the random encounter because why not? The game's amazing. It's fun. It's not too long. It's pretty short, but it is a fun and amazing game. I do hope that comes, so I'm giving that as an honorable mention. So I did promise that I wasn't going to mention games that we kind of figured was going to come out, you know, such as Golden Sun. We kind of know Golden Sun 2 is going to come out, or I would say it's kind of a good educated guess that Golden Sun 2 is going to come out. Because right, why have part 1 and not have part 2, right? Fire Emblem Sacred Stones is another one that I feel will come out because we're getting Fire Emblem the Blazing Blade, you know, so like why not bring Fire Emblem Sacred Stones? But this game is a very low probability, but I still hope it comes, and that is Fire Emblem the Binding Blade. I know in the last video I got them to reverse, but I do got them correct this time. I hope so. Fire Emblem the Binding Blade is where you take over, or rather, you play as Roy, and you follow Roy's storyline. And this is a game that actually never came to the US. There's a lot of fan translations out there that you can play through emulation and things like that, but it'll be nice to have a translated version of this available on Nintendo Switch Online. I mean, honestly, this game, from what I've heard, is better than oh man, I'm losing my thought of that. Blazing Blade, there we go. See, I keep getting confused. Why do they have to have such similar names? But anyways, I heard it is a little bit better, so I would love to play that. Honestly, I have tried it and tested it out with the fan translation, but it's just, I don't know, it's that little bit of me knowing that it's not the official translation that kind of makes me not want to continue. So let's hope this game comes over. Now, the last game is a game that everybody has been hoping for, and they've been yelling and shouting and tweeting and all that stuff because they want to play this game. And apparently there's a lot of negative, not negative, but there's a lot of fear that they won't bring it over because I guess there's a little bit of controversial topics there in the game. You know, and I guess, yeah, it was a different world back then versus now, so it's not gonna fly. They're afraid of, you know, getting sued and things like that. But that game is Mother 3, and from what I hear, it's the best of the 3 Mother games, because, you know, you do have Mother 1 or Earthbound Beginnings, Mother 2 or Earthbound, and then you have Mother 3. Mother 3 is where you actually play as Lucas. For those of you who don't know who Lucas is, I mean, he's in Smash Bros, right? He's not Ness, he's not the kid with the hat, he's a different character. But yeah, you play as Lucas. The gameplay loop is pretty much similar to every Mother game or every other JRPG. And the cast, I guess, is great and amazing. I did start that up and I played the beginning part of it, and I loved it and enjoyed it. Of course, it was the fan translation of it, but I kind of had lost hope and I didn't think this game was ever going to come. But now that Nintendo Switch has announced Game Boy Advance, and we're playing Game Boy Advance games now, let's hope that an official translation will come through. I know there was rumors that they're sitting on that they do have an official translation. It's just locked away because they don't want to release it because, again, there's some controversial themes out there inside the game. Let's all hope it does come though. Alright, that's my top 10 list of games that I do hope come to Nintendo Switch Online. What do you guys think about that list? I mean, honestly, there's a lot of great Game Boy Advance games out there, and it was hard to put them all on this list. Some of them you can probably mix and match. There's probably other games that I don't even know about that you feel should be on this list. Another honorable mention that I really do hope comes is there's a Yu-Gi-Oh game. I don't remember what the name of it is, but you were pretty much taking part in the Battle City tournament in that arc of the series. I thought that was an amazing Yu-Gi-Oh game. It reminded me a lot of actually Pokemon trading card game, where you have a character, you create a character, and you go through and participate in the tournament. You fight Yugi, Kaiba, Joey, all those guys. That's another great game that could have been on the list. I mean, honestly, again, there's a lot of great Game Boy Advance games. There was a Banjo-Kazooie game that was available on there. I didn't mention the Donkey Kong Country games because I feel because they're available in SNES, they probably won't port them over to the Game Boy Advance, but I mean, hey, who knows? Like I said, right now we're at the anything goes. I do think that the games that were on that leak list that I did mention in the last video is probably going to show up, but as far as this list goes, I try to choose games that weren't on that leaked list or that weren't a sequel to games that we know might come out a bit, or rather come later on. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're on Twitch, go ahead and follow us on Twitch as well. We also do a podcast every Sunday called the Random Encounter Podcast. Definitely check that out. My name is James from the Random Encounter, and we'll see you next time.